I think it's 5:30, so let's get going, and hopefully everyone will keep trickling in. Just heads up, again, we're recording. I am going to post it on YouTube. I'm going to edit it together and have one whole live feed so people can see in the future. If you want your voice to be heard clearly, we got a couple of microphones. We got this one here, and Serene's got that one. We can pass it around. We can talk into it if you want. Otherwise, it'll just be picking up as it goes. Is that on screen? It is not on. So, anyways, so obviously everyone knows there's been a lot of stuff going on. You have a very thick packet with a lot of items on it. Just top line, first thing to cover for anyone that's new or who hasn't heard the specific situation with the new road. The big announcement that happened, what was it, 2.5 weeks ago now at this point, 3 weeks ago. And our take on it is that it's obviously a very exciting development. Something happened for the first time in 20 years, so we're very positive and thrilled that it means that progress is happening, but there's been nothing written down that we have reviewed or seen. So we don't know what the specific details are. That said, there are some new maps that have come out, and inside your packets at some point there's an approximate route right there. The maps that we have seen start at the 71-ish mile marker. There's already a pull-off right there. It is south of Kamakoa Gulch on Highway 19. Below, it's in between Mount Alani and Puako. On the Mauka side of the highway, you can see it. You've probably driven past it 1,000 times and never paid any attention to it. There's a gate there. That's going to be the start of the new road. It is going to lead up to Kamakoa Wastewater Treatment Plant, which you can see clearly on Google Maps. That is the section that is being funded by the new development. We don't know how much is being committed to it, but that is the section that they have done. Then from the wastewater treatment plant to the skate park in the village, that's going to be filled in with the library and the workforce housing community that is 751 houses or whatever. I don't know the exact number. And presumably surface streets are going to fill that in. Did I miss anything? Is that accurate? We don't have any funding. We don't know that it's there. We're still concerned. We're still going to keep following up on it. We won't believe it until, I keep saying until I'm driving up the road. So we're going to keep following it, and that's why we're still here. And there's a lot of stuff we're going to talk about where we're pushing this along. I wasn't at the opening, so these are just sort of things that don't quote me on this, but my understanding is the state is going to pay for the intersection. That is going to be a commitment of approximately $2 million. It is not in the budget thus far. Will have to be committed in next year's budget. And the second understanding that I have is that it's approximately $5 million that the developers have put in for the 7,000 feet-ish of road. Haven't seen that written down, so I don't know that, but that's almost certainly not going to be enough. We're going to have to supplement that, or they're going to have to supplement that at some point in time. But that's sort of my rough top strokes understanding of the road announcement. And that's the first thing on the thing right here. We've also been having tons of other conversations, and we're going to be expanding our scope quite a bit here as we grow as an organization. And one of the big things that we did is we went and had a conversation with Brian Chow, Congressman Chakuta's office, and David set that up, and we want to sort of transition into how what's going on with the road is going to transition to actually coming about and actually being a real thing. So, yeah, David, fill us in on what happened there. And also on David, if David Turner, if Bob was show.
Yeah, okay, so as far as Joe Chakuta's office, we actually had the meeting with Ben Chow just before the announcement. So at that time, we were really soliciting the Congressman's office to help us get the road on the long-term transportation plan. Because one of the things that we still have an issue with is it doesn't appear on any county or state plan that is now being transported. And over the long run, we think that's going to be a detriment to effective maintenance of the road and a whole lot of other things, including the possibility that at some point the promises of the developer fall through, and let's just, imagine the possibility the road is only half complete. So we'd like to get it on the state, county and state's plan. And our initial conversation again with the Chakuta's office was to solicit her help. Since then, Rob, who's not here, has opened a dialogue with the Hawaii Department of Transportation, and we're now getting more actively engaged in understanding what it takes to get on the long-term plan and ultimately the STIP, which is the way that the federal government and state government and county governments figure out what's going to be funded. So it's probably at least I imagine it's at least a year process to go through that. I was asked if you wanted to join one of the.
He and I got invited to join the county citizens committee for the STIP plan. I believe Bob is going to join, and he will make sure that the road is on the next plan. I'm certain.
On page 9, sorry, David, on page 9, there's a breakdown of what David's talking about that Bob put together. It's sort of the hurdles to get a road for us done, and it's 10 steps.
Yeah. And specifically, the STIP funding, the STIP process is what will enable us to get state and federal dollars, where the people have the real money that can actually build a road. So that's specifically what that whole thing is for. Thanks.
Yeah, so there's an excellent recap, and if I read my agenda. But it's not a simple process. That's probably the bottom line. However, I'm encouraged because they've at least let us into one of the rooms that leads to that result. So we should take advantage.
And then we also had a conversation with David Harness right after the senior meeting. So this is kind of an interesting, I just want to recap everyone, the sort of blow by blow of what happened with the announcement and how it was kind of a little unusual. So we were getting little drips and drabs that it was coming. Michael was very gracious to share some information, and Cindy Evans shared some information, but everyone didn't really know much. They were holding it very close and tight to the vest. And then David Tarnas, the day before, emailed and said, hey, what's the deal with this? And he got a ton of information and immediately forwarded it to us because he came to the local seniors meeting, Stephanie's meeting that happens in this room, and David and Bob and I cornered him afterwards and said, hey, what's going on with this announcement? He didn't know. He dove in and he immediately forwarded us all sorts of stuff that I don't think he was supposed to, but then let it out of the bag, and that was great. We were really appreciative of it. So he has been on our team. I'm supportive and helpful. I'm grateful for what he did, and that's how we knew about the maps. That's how we knew this announcement was happening before the media. We announced it to the media. I can tell you all this correctly. I linked it to Jeremy Lee, and he was very grateful of that to go and ask the questions that we couldn't ask ourselves. We wanted someone present to be able to ask about funding, and to ask about timelines, but we didn't want to go crowded. We weren't invited. We didn't want to make it a dangerous situation. So we did want to have some representative there, and that's how that sort of connection all came about. I want to be transparent and clear about that with everyone. So yeah, I don't know, David Harris has been awesome. He's been very helpful.
Yeah, I would add that as a follow-up to that event, you got with the Department of Transportation, because they sort of volunteered to pay for the intersection, but there's no funding allocated to do the intersection. So Tarnas has raised his hand and said that he will help work with HDOT on getting all that together and bringing some presumably enabling legislation and funding forward to help bring that about.
Okay. We also went to the market, which is Aslan's next agenda item.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think some of you saw us at the June market, the market this past Saturday. It was fantastic. We were talking story with a lot of people. Almost everyone who came up to us was asking about the groundbreaking, so it felt nice to be able to answer questions of whatever we know about it. And we sold a lot of car magnets and t-shirts, which we brought here if anybody wants one. I think we're going to do the July market as well and just continue kind of being out in the community for the people who don't see our post on Facebook or Nextdoor or what have you. It's really nice to hand out maps like this and answer everybody's questions about the road and what's going on. So yeah.
an hour. I could talk about the STIP meetings. I did a poor job of butchering it. Bob can tell us much more in detail the STIP process and where we're at.
He's also wearing a t-shirt.
He's also wearing a t-shirt. This is a model of the
I thought I had to. I mean,
we do want to order some more t-shirts, by the way. We ran out of mediums, and so if anyone specifically wants one, let us know your size, and we can make another order with some estimates, and we can talk about that.
so the basic problem we have here with this road is that there are no firm commitments. The mayor says he has informal commitments from the developers to complete the emergency road within the next year. But none of that is in writing. And we sent the mayor a letter last month before the last meeting asking him to formalize what he understands the commitments to the developers to be in a modified set of approval conditions for the PUD at Waikoloa Heights. So right now, the conditions in the approval dating back to 2004 are that the developer will either widen Aniolo out to their development or extend the road from the north end of the village out to Queen K Highway. So, as far as we know, those two options remain open to the developers. So they can walk away from this informal commitment at any time. So that's why we asked the mayor to get them to agree that if they are now going to honor the commitments that he says he has from them, that should be memorialized in a revised set of approval conditions for the project. And as far as we know, that hasn't happened. And maybe he's working on it, we don't know. But that's an important question. But given the possibility that the developers may not complete the project, we want to make sure that the project ends up being eligible for public money, for federal or state highway money. And right now, it is not in any of the transportation plans for the county. So that means it's not eligible for public money. So we've reached out to the Hawaii Department of Transportation, which is responsible for adopting the regional transportation plan for the county. The county has a lot of input into it, but it's ultimately a state planning document. And we found out that they are planning to update that plan by 2026. So within the next 18 months, they're planning to update the plan, which is good. The plan was adopted in 2014, so it's 10 years old, and it does not have any project like work we're now expecting to be built in the plan. And at this point, we have a commitment from HTOT to include a representative from our group on the advisory committee that they are establishing to advise them in the update process. And I have volunteered to be our representative, unless somebody wants to take that over. I'm sure no one is going to probably trip over there.
It's an excellent choice.
Yes, the t-shirt.
Yeah, and I'll wear it to the meeting. So I wrote back and told them I would volunteer for their advisory committee, but they have to understand that I'm going to be there primarily to fight to get this project in the plan. And I'm not there to be an objective observer. I'm going to be an advocate for this project. So they know that. And at this point, I just have to fill out the form and send it back to them. So that's where we are with that. And today, I just finished drafting a letter to the governor, because the governor came to the groundbreaking for the emergency project 2 weeks ago. And that was, I think, one of the significant consequences of what the mayor has been able to accomplish. And having the mayor get the governor to the groundbreaking seemed to be an important step, because the governor is now on board. I mean, he's on the hook. He's committed to making sure that this second road gets built. So we're preparing a letter to him explaining what's going on with the transportation planning process, that we need to get this project into the state plan so that it can be eligible for state or federal money. And I want him to be aware of that, because this state planning process is pretty arcane. Whether the governor understands it or not, who knows? I just want to make sure he does understand it, and that it has to happen, and that we want his support in getting this project into the state plan. And then the letter also asks him for support for spending some of the new money that the legislature gave the Division of Forestry in this session for maintaining the fire breaks that the State Highway Department cut last month. They brought in their heavy equipment. They cleared 2 fire breaks a mile out of the village between here and Waikoloa Highway. But with the rains, the vegetation is coming back really fast. So there needs to be a commitment to maintain those fire breaks. And the letter asks the governor to commit to have the forestry division play a role in keeping these fire breaks open. So, the highway department did the heavy lifting. They cleared out the big fuel, the trees, and all that stuff. And they helped grade the fire breaks so you can actually get a truck in there. That's good. But now we need some help making sure that the vegetation stays suppressed in the fire break. Because otherwise, if it all grows up again, fire would just blast right through. So that's now in the works, a letter to the governor, and then we will follow. We'll send a copy of that to the mayor, and we'll follow up with the mayor saying, hey, what's going on with getting these commitments from the developers in writing? We want this pinned down. We want to know what they're actually promising to do, and to be able to hold them accountable. So that's what I think.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Serena.
Yeah, so I'll give a quick update. So since our last meeting, we have opened so we are officially a nonprofit in the state of Hawaii. We have articles of incorporation. It requires us to file an annual report to the state of Hawaii as a recognized nonprofit. But with that, we were able to go and open up a bank account, and as a way to track, money and so forth. I opened up a bank account with Hawaii Federal Credit Union. I chose a credit union because there's no fees, it's easy, it's a local company, I want to support the community. It required us to make a $100 minimum deposit, which I've donated to the organization. Since the market, both pre-sales and at the market, we've sold approximately $200 of merchandise, which may not seem like a lot, but we've also only been selling things for less than a month. So this is great. We obviously have more things to sell today if anyone wants any swag or anything. I have no plans. I think as a group we should decide where we want to use the money. But as of now, it's just in a bank account. We also received a donation from someone to officially file a 501c3 form with the IRS so that federally we can be recognized as a nonprofit. This is a $600 application fee, and obviously we do not have that money, and someone generously donated it. So thank you to that individual, and that is the next thing I'm working on over the next month. It is a 20-page form that I have to file It's very detailed, and it also requires us to do some sort of annual disclosures, and so forth. So that's just my next project, so.
There are two specific parts of the 501c3 filling out that have been a little bit of a blocker for us. The first one is officers, and the second one is bylaws, because we've never actually voted on either one of those. And I don't know if this is a point to transition into an actual, I've never organized a nonprofit group like this, so I was just going to write some stuff up and submit it and say, you know, as Serena's the treasurer and Az and I are the co-founders, and that's it. But if anyone objects to that, or if there's a better way of doing it, please do inform us, and we'll do this the proper right way. But I just also wanted to get it going, so that was the thing to ask you all's help for. If anyone has experience or suggestions.
You should take the language from the Hawaii Wildfire Management Organization, because it's just legal boilerplate.
Yeah.
Same time, just copy it.
Okay.
Search and replace their name with ours. And
Perfect. Okay, that's fine. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then structure, like who the officers are, what happens, who has voting power, who has the bank account, what happens when you dissolve.
Yeah.
That's all standard.
Okay. I will do that.
And then probably in the future, I'll have a one-pager in the packet on just our expenses or where we're at with our checking account, just again in the spirit of transparency. So, but yeah.
Well, the other key piece of that is describing the mission of your organization.
Yes.
Because it's the definition of the mission that the IRS uses to determine when I qualify as a nonprofit. The rest of it is all boilerplate, as Michael says, but the mission statement is really critical for the approval.
We do have a mission statement. It's very second row heavy, but this is a great point to transition into the talk story portion of the evening. If anyone's got ideas, this is when you start kicking in everything. But you see this first line here, we know a new emergency road is coming, what are our next steps? And then how can we increase our areas of focus? Because we aren't shutting down shop just if a second road comes down. That's not like, oh wow, we're now protected from wildfire, everything's great. Like, that's not the way this is gonna go. We wanna stick around and be a part of the community and ensuring that these issues are being addressed at a larger level. And I've been having a lot of meetings lately. Now that we've kind of can pump the brakes a tiny bit and start taking a little bit of a look around the community and see what's going on. The thing that I've been actively trying to do is connect with as many other organizations that are doing things similar to this and find out who the authority figures are on the island. So we're going to meet with WDFI, the Dry Forest Preserve, on Monday. I got a meeting with HWMO with Nani, the executive director, at the end of June. I'm on Chief Todd's schedule for July 2nd now. I went and met with PTA, I met with Garrison Commander Alvarado and Chief Mike Deal of the PTA last Thursday. And we're just trying to get out there and let them know, everyone know that, hey, we aren't closing down shop because of the road. We still have a strong mission of advocacy. And I met with the Lions Club also last night. That was very fun and enjoyable. And we're going to keep on going. I want to talk to the schools. We're going to keep on going because the first thing that I think is really important that we can do is this education and advocacy spot, shoving this information in people's faces and just talking to people and being at the community market, just constantly being a presence so people can think about this stuff. And one of the questions that everyone keeps asking is, how is this distinguished? How are we distinguished from Firewise at the WVA? And what I keep telling people is two major ways. First off, we're not affiliated with the association because there's more than just WVA people in the village. We want Paniolo Estates represented. We want Nanak Islands that come in to be represented. We want all of the people across the Waikoloa Road over there in the workforce housing and the apartments. We want them to be represented because all of us are at risk, right? So we've got a lot of people that are not association. And also, the association operates on like a monthly cadence, right? You gotta go approve things in front of the board of directors. You gotta ask for permission for stuff. We gotta go faster. We just gotta be able to do our own thing. So those are the two main reasons we're not association people. The other thing is Firewise is front line, in my opinion, right? They're out there making sure that our houses are cleared of our space. They're out there cutting down the trees with Team Rubicon. They're here within the village making sure the village is protected. They are not out there going beyond the village to go and yell at the government representatives and write the letters. And that's just not that's not their lane. It's two different things. It's two different tasks. It's too much stuff for one group to do. So that's sort of, we're fitting into that slot of advocacy. I'll get back to the sort of idea of the trail run and everything in a minute, but David was really thinking well about this, about how we need to come at it from a...
Sorry, before you move on to that point, let's actually have a discussion about, we threw a lot of...
Yes, I said a lot of things, I'm sorry, I'll pause for that. And then let me get back, I don't want to
Do
get...
we have questions?
Do we have questions?
There's a
we
lot
at?
in this packet, and we've been very busy. In my brain, it feels like what happened pre-groundbreaking and then after, there's sort of like a lot changed, so, yeah, any questions? How's the community feeling about this?
I'll just say, from being there Saturday, one thing that I took away in talking to people was, well, for this group, the somewhat, what I think is realistic, almost cynical, a little bit of taking the groundbreaking wasn't like, okay, we're done. It was very much like, okay, that was a good photo op, but people understanding that. And I mean, I was very happy that it wasn't that people were like, oh, well, now what are you guys going to do because the road's done. And people were very much in that when we asked me about it, when they asked about the groundbreaking, but they realized that it isn't a done deal. So I think it's a great thing, and I'm glad that they were all here and that, we had that. But I was very, that it seems like that people do realize there's a lot more to do, and that's just, the tip.
Yeah, it was encouraging.
Yeah,
to
hear that.
Everyone kind of understood it. It felt like a photo op. I think that's basically what it was. Anything else? Or else he'll just keep talking.
The only thing I've since learned from the mayor's office is that there's another partner in the mix paying for this road, and that's affordable housing. The developer isn't building the Kamakoa Drive.
See, that's not mentioned anywhere.
So as that new development goes up, not the one along Paniola, but the other one beyond where the future library will go, the construction of that road is tied into that project.
That's what I said.
But I think they're responsible for taking it down to the wastewater treatment plant. And then Summers West is doing from the highway to that point, and then to the other branch that would eventually go to the future Paniola extension.
If that's not happening anytime soon.
No, well, none of it's happening soon.
The bottom of the list, I assume, is the extension off
to the left.
And Michael, do you know or have you heard, is the developer funding the sort of phase 1 chip seal only, and then the county has to come in and make this, a permanent dedicated second road?
That's a great question. That's no
Okay.
answer.
I didn't know if you knew, but we don't know. And I'd like to know who's paying for the step of making an actual permanent road unlocked that we can all use all the time, which is what we want. Okay, that's our question.
So, let me just add a little bit to that, that's a great data point, because what we're talking about is extending Kamakoa road to that road, as it's extended, all of that land out there is slated to be affordable housing. It's owned by the county, okay? So basically what Michael's just shared is the county has tied those projects and the road together, which may not be a good thing, because depending on how they approach it, we get to see them build the road first and then come, okay? So if it's all tied to, well, we got to start putting in the housing first before we put in the road, then we're, like I said, I hate to be that negative about it, but that's a typical scenario that we've seen in the past. And again, that's just maybe another level of complexity we need to be aware of.
Are there any agreements or documents that you've seen around that funding and what happens first in terms of the houses or the road?
No.
Are there any you've heard of that I can start filing some requests for?
Well, you should be filing requests with the usual suspects. I have requested a meeting with the developer, and they're receptive to that. So trying to get that on the calendar the next couple of weeks.
The developer of the county project?
No, the Summers West.
Summers, okay.
So I also reached out and I did not get a response this time.
And then I believe Summers West also reached out to WVA because they wanted to have another chat about just fire issues in general, and I don't know what that's about, and we're trying to schedule that. I don't know if it'll make it to the next agenda or what. But they want to get involved, and they want to successfully launch a $90 million development, so they'll do that. I also haven't seen any plans on the park, which is tied into that.
If you would like a representative from WSA at a meeting in Summers West and WVA, we would love to have one of us attend and kind of be a part of that conversation, I think.
And once our letter to the governor is on its way, we'll obviously share it with everybody. If you can ask the village to support the concept of having state forestry division play an active role in maintaining those fire breaks, I think that would be.
And that is a tricky one too, because the state cut in, I forget what the final count was. I know they originally proposed 2 dozen fire breaks, and I know
They cut 30 miles, so I do have a little more information on that. I emailed Rob Lee, who is the main guy at the Department of Transportation, asking explicitly for a map of all of the new fuel breaks that were cut. And he told me that he could tell me that they had cut 30 miles of them, but he was not allowed to share a map with me because they were all on private land. And this is also how we know that it's not within the Department of Transportation's inventory, and they will not be maintaining them in the future because he explicitly told me as much. So they did it as a one-time only thing, and they could disappear in the future if the private landowners do not maintain them, which is now their obligation if they choose to do so. But they are under no obligation.
Do we know what those requirements are for private landowners to maintain the fuel breaks? Like, is
no, there was none.
Literally.
No. But the new funding for the state Division of Forestry is specifically earmarked for helping to maintain fire breaks, among other things. So we want to get them engaged in protecting these fire breaks. And of course, it's going to involve some consent from the landowners.
But it's going to be a challenge because you're asking for public dollars to do something on private land.
100%. But I'm willing to be the guy that goes up and says, hey, 7,000 people are going to die if this doesn't happen. So I'm willing to make the governor or the senators are going to feel uncomfortable with that and try to get it. So.
Oh, and have you met or do you have a relationship with Harry Takumi, who's the HDOT?
I have met him, yes.
But I would work through him and develop a relationship with him.
Okay.
And then go through him to interact with the governor's office and others in HDOT, so you have a ally on the island to help you navigate and fight for what we're trying to do.
I'm assuming I'll have that connection once these advisory committee meetings start.
Harry was the guy running the STEM.
Yeah.
So.
But Harry is very friendly and open and approachable. He's always at the South Dallas Traffic Safety Committee.
Right. Well, and we reached out to him and his staff, and they referred us to a separate team that's doing the long-range plan. So that's the connection I'm bought into at the moment. I think Harry is more involved in actually building things than planning process. That's my understanding.
Oh, and that's fine, because we had 2 things. We got the path that you on. There's also this second issue of cutting fire breaks that are well maintained and provide fire protection, which sounds like that's where Harry's got the bulldozers. He's the guy with the bulldozers, so we should probably.
Well, he and other private.
Yeah.
BP takes them.
But at this point, we don't need bulldozers. Bulldozers work at one time. What we need is somebody to go in there and spray it periodically to keep vegetation from regrowing. It's a much less onerous task, but it needs to be consistent. That's.
I agree. I think that this is sort of the challenge. It's great that the state and the county got together and cut the roads and they didn't really ask for a lot of permission, just went there and did it. I love the proactivity. But then it's not on their inventory to maintain, okay, including, keeping the weeds down, right? And, at least, as far as we can tell, the owners haven't signed up for anything. It was some condition of their agreement that they would do anything. So once again, we've got an act, an announcement in a way, that isn't sustainable. And I think that's where, again, I feel like this organization trying to make things sustainable, so we're not going back 3 years from now and everybody's trying to remember when they cut that. Well, I remember they cut that fire break in 24, well, who did what, right?
Yeah,
More than
why,
we were able to.
and why did we have a fire this year?
Yeah, right.
That's,
May I ask,
Yes.
maybe getting the landowners' names and thanking them in advance for maintaining, keeping the weeds down?
Well, I mean, the landowners of us is the WVA for the majority of it, right? So
Oh, I thought it was private.
no, we are private, right? And so what Rob at DOT said is that it's all on private land, including the WVA land. And he said, for the map of the WVA land, get with Roger and Chemo.
Okay.
For the other land, which is mostly Parker land, I would have to contact Parker Ranch people. But he didn't tell me any of that part. He just said he can't provide me information with it on other private lands. And so,
Isn't the information public if you have the
TFAs,
TFAs?
yes.
sure, but I don't even have a map, though.
I believe I have copies of the North and South Hollow fire break maps. So I'll get them.
That would be very helpful.
Yeah.
That would be great. Because the other thing I will share with you all, at my meeting at PTA, Waikoloa training area, they were telling me that they are actively mapping out a new fire break. They literally have their crews out there doing the GIS surveys right now. That is going to be just Mauka of 190 of Mauna up there. Almost, he wasn't sure exactly how far or the whole distance. It's going to be quite long, almost all the way from the old saddle entrance up towards Waikiki, all the way down to New Saddle. And it's going to be literally just Mauka of Mauna Loa, so it's going to be like doubling the width of that break. So that'll be very nice for anything that starts up in Waikiki or the PTA area coming down to us. It'll be the third line of defense.
well, Michael, do you see any problem with having the village association approve work by the forestry division to maintain those breaks that are on village land?
I can't speak on behalf of the board, but I know the board is willing to do whatever it takes to build safety. So someone comes here with an easement to get the new escape road out, they'll sign it, I'm sure. If someone wants to maintain fire breaks, they'll sign off on that. There's not going to be any friction or resistance.
Do they earmark budget for fire break maintenance?
The association does not. The association just started a fire mitigation allocation in last fall's budget for this year. So that's the first time there's actually a line item in the budget for fire mitigation. Yeah.
Crazy, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow,
That,
that is something.
that's a part of our advocacy effort.
But rural wildfire safety advocates. But be aware, there's also people who have all sorts of issues in contrasting views. You talk about spraying herbicide. There's a whole group that wants 0 herbicides. The association is getting complaints about what Rubicon did because now people have lost some privacy, or some environmentalists said we took away natural habitats of birds and animals that were living in there. Other people are complaining that now that it's open, dust is blowing in. So there's always an opposite viewpoint, and we have to be cognizant of that and then message around that to get everyone on board.
Yeah, but you can't, if you try to make everyone happy, you let the most disagreeable person dictate the course of action. So we definitely need to continue building on momentum in our engagement with everyone, which is a great transition point to the next thing that I wanted to talk about, is getting the word out to everyone. And getting this information in front of people and doing some sort of community event, both at the same time. So I think I've been talking to Mitch Robinson a lot, Mitch Richardson, the outreach committee chairperson, and talking about different events that we could have in the village. And the first idea we thought of was having a 5K through the village, which would be cool, but that would require police presence, and it would cost money, and that was maybe not that interesting. But then we thought, hey, there's all this work that Team Rubicon has done, and there's all of these new fuel breaks that have been cut, and there's all this stuff out there that most people in the village have no clue about whatsoever. They've never seen them. They've maybe seen it mentioned in an email somewhere or whatever, but they haven't seen it with their own eyes, and they don't know about the opportunity out there, or the hazard, as the case may be. And so we were like, maybe let's do a trail run. Let's literally host like a 5K or a 10K along the mounted easement, underneath the power lines, or along one of the new fuel breaks or something like that. And I mentioned it to the PTA guys, and they were like, hey, make it a real Tough Mudder, or like a Spartan thing with like spraying people with hoses and stuff. I don't know if that's where we're going with this thing, but they were excited about the idea as well. The problem with all of this, obviously, is that the average demographic in the village isn't going to necessarily go do a 10K along the easements, right? That's not likely. But what we might do is like a 1 mile guided hike that's narrated at sunset and that explains the whole thing. So my idea is to have like some sort of strong, intense race thing in the morning, right at sunrise, and then having a sunset hike at night with the Kiki and the Kapuna and all the people in the morning who already did the race and just want to see a nice thing. And then having like some sort of festival or fair in the middle of the day. Like have an ice cream social or a fire safety thing, and HWMO would have a booth, and the HFD would have a booth. And when I was growing up, we always had these every summer where the fire department put it on, and there was 20 fire trucks in a row, and you go check out the booths and everything, and then you go buy your barbecue, and you get an ice cream scoop, and the whole town comes out, the whole thing. And then halfway through, throughout the day, they've got care flight, the helicopter landing, and then they have a fake car extraction where they get on the jaws of life and they tear up a car, and they do a show and everything. And I mentioned to the PTA guys, and they were like, absolutely, we want to be a part of that for sure. And if we have enough warning on this and enough advance notice, and there's not like some operational thing going on, we can probably request assets from Oahu for it. So I don't want to make any promises, but they were like, yes, let's do it. Let's bring in Blackhawks and let's do a show. And I was like, yes, let's make it happen.
So the goal, the thinking is move this conversation to a bigger audience than, again, just next door or even the Waikoloa Village Association, and bring the community together. We don't have a lot of Waikoloa community events, not Waikoloa Resort, Waikoloa Village community events. And sort of couple that with fire awareness, fire prevention, and just allowing the community to come feel like they're invited to the fuel break space, to talk story, to look at it together. So this is the beginnings of an idea.
Yes, this has been percolating in my brain. We have not approached
He's been dying to get it out of his body. So
yes,
like open for feedback. I don't know everyone's first thoughts on it. I love the idea of something for all age groups in our community that also we can talk about. We can talk about anything related to fire. We can have the fire. Every time I've ever talked to anyone from our fire department, it's been the most enlightening conversation. Sometimes terrifying, but it's good to hear it. So that's the thinking behind that. Thoughts?
It sounds big.
Yes. That's why it would be a long ways away.
And at my age, big, I stay away from it. However, I would participate and I would try and do something if I could.
Yes.
So.
That was my real idea, is to have a little bit here for some people, a little bit here for some people, a little bit here for some people. So not everyone feels pressure to go in. And the biggest thing, we don't have a babysitter tonight, hence the bonus attendee in the corner. But I don't know how many people went to the Easter egg hunt. Probably not a lot of people in this room. But it was awesome because there were literally hundreds of families and kids running around because there was something to do for the kids. And so, what's that?
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's just like,
For the children to
find a rock and paint this.
It's more of like a scavenger hunt. That sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like they pick up something along the trail,
Yes,
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Or maybe bring clippers and clip.
Maybe.
You know, maybe people bring what they have to clip as they walk.
Sure.
But, when you talk about the Blackhawks and stuff like that, that's gonna be up to PTA?
I have no idea. What I told them is,
It's gonna be down at the.
I don't know about the stables, but like I could see like an area off of one of the fuel breaks. There's quite a bit of space. I drove them both the whole distance a week and a half ago, and there's some pretty big areas where like hundreds of cars are parked there. They're like football field size.
What about the skate, or the, next to the skate park?
Combo, possibly, yeah, totally. The point is, this is a big enough thing that it's gonna require lots of different moving parts and permission. And so some of the things would be limited by where we are allowed to do stuff, and by the capacity. And so I haven't even, Michael, I haven't applied to the board yet, but I do intend to talk to them about it this coming cycle to see, hey, what are the thoughts? Can we start making commitments? What time frame? Let's have a meeting and see where we can go with this. But rough, broad strokes. What I told them is, hey, let's do a show. And I just remember from being a kid, a helicopter landing and then like putting a stretcher on it and then taking off and thinking that was the coolest thing. And also having like a big foam pit from the fire truck. So I have no idea what they can do. Maybe they could do a water drop. I don't know. I know, that'd be awesome, right? But I don't know if that's even plausible. Right? I give them the freedom within whatever constraints we set up, and then go
The
from
problem
there.
with fire, water droplets, it grows fuel.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. I don't know what is the right solution or what the right engagement is, but the other thing that I thought could happen, it wouldn't be a major money raising activity, but one of the big problems we have right now is there's not enough money in the WBA budget to clear all of the interior lots or to widen the fuel breaks. But we could easily feed any profits from this thing back into actionable items like that. That would be beneficial to the whole community. Yes, sir.
And if you have vendors who are selling ice cream with it, we can't make it free.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
not practical.
No.
So,
Yeah, but it's an opportunity, and then also we can have a t-shirt with sponsors on it, and if it's around Ironman time, there's a lot of stuff that's going on there that we could start tapping into. So like, there's a lot of directions this can go, and nothing has been committed or promised to, but I do know, DOT was interested in maybe coming, I know that PTA is interested. I'm gonna talk to Chief Todd about it in a couple of weeks, and see where this all grows. If no one says that's a terrible idea, I am gonna write up a little submission to send off to the board and see what it is.
Okay, that's your chance to say this is a joke.
No, I'm not raising my hand to say it's a terrible idea. I really think it's a very good idea, but after so many years of doing very, very large events myself, this will take time.
Absolutely.
So in your enthusiastic pondering, as you were thinking, and talking to people, do you see this as something you wanted to do in 2024, or?
I mean, that's also part of the restrictions. Like, I don't know what space we have, how big it could actually grow into, or how restricted it has to be. I mean, Ironman's in October, unlikely to happen by then, but if we get all the things and the stars align, possibly, if not spring, fall
So
time.
maybe fourth quarter 24 or first quarter 25, something like that.
But I would recommend that you think about what you want the outcome to be before even coming up with the event on it.
Right.
I mean, the outcome is to get people together and have fire awareness and like have a community.
But do you want a bigger goal of like raising funds to clear interior lots or
That's bonus. That's bonus. I've spoken to some people that have told me that races like this are not a great way to raise money. They're much more just to have a community awareness gathering thing. There's better ways to raise money if that was our goal. So I don't know if I would, I really hesitate to getting out like a giant like thermometer that we need to get to 50,000 or otherwise we didn't raise enough to clear a lot and then we don't get anywhere close to that. I have no idea what is
I'm
possible.
also personally opposed to, I want the WBA to pay to clear their lots. And maybe we can help donate a little bit of money to that on behalf of our organization for the purpose of safety, but the landowners should maintain their land, and I don't wanna give them like a get out of jail free card. Maybe it's like a match thing or something, if we could raise $10,000, they can but I don't want to, take their feet out of the fire to basically take care of their own backyard, our backyard. So yeah, I heard on the goals, I think the goal that we've talked about is community awareness, bringing the community together, talking about fire safety, making sure everyone knows. When we were at the community market, I'm telling people about Nixle. That people don't have Nixle alerts, right? Like this is an event to make sure everyone knows.
What is a Nixle?
Oh, great. It's an emergency alert, so you'll get messages.
So I can Everbridge, but.
Right, same thing.
It's just another one.
Same company.
NIXLE, and you can text your zip code to 888-777, and you'll get the Nixle alerts.
But it's all voluntary to sign in. It's only about 10% of the county has really signed up for this, to receive the alerts from civil defense and police. So it's pretty staggering.
This is where Everbridge sends like, the same thing.
It's the same company.
I think,
It's always the same thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if I'm on one, I don't need to be on both. Or do you think one's better than the other? Is that what you think?
It's the same.
I don't always get the same one.
I believe what Everbridge bought Nick.
Yes.
So it's the same thing.
They transitioned.
Just different agencies.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people that don't do that too, so that really is something.
I mean, that's safety, right? That's where we find out about brush fires nearby or car accidents and roads are closed.
So I have a question. If the road isn't gonna be ready for a couple of years, I don't know if we know the answer to this, but let's just say you're in the line to get out of one of these roads and you're not succeeding. Is there like anything that anybody can think of that we could do so you don't burn up in your car? I mean, are there blankets like the fire departments use? Is there stuff we could sell like that?
So, that's a good question. Back to the blanket question, real quick. Another thing that could be a goal for this event is passing out fire blankets, like the silicone fire blankets to stop a fire on a stove. That can set a t-shirt. To answer your question, no, there isn't, because the fires in Lahaina were burning over 2,000 degrees, so it's hot enough to not last.
Okay, so when a hot stop comes down and he covers up with one of that, if it's that hot, they don't make it either. Is that the deal? So they don't have something that burns.
Yeah, people were like in the middle of the swimming pools of the resorts, right? And like for hours. And if the fire is actively burning around you, the oxygen, the lack of oxygen, and then the heat. You gotta get out.
So you can't be in the pool either. The pool's not.
It depends on how hard it's blowing. I don't want to say that it's.
I'm just saying that I don't feel like this is happening fast enough.
You're right.
And so I'm thinking that we should also be educating what's an alternative if you're stuck in the line. What should we be doing? What should those people have done? What can we do?
We can advocate for a second road, and you can get out earlier. Honestly, it's awful answers, but that's the absolute reality of it, right? Because we literally have too many people for the space. There's literally not enough capacity. It took people an hour and a half to get from.
So we need an evacuation plan.
We need an evacuation plan. That's the other thing I've been advocating for, but David can talk about it very, very extensively. He's the genesis of the idea. So yes, it's awful. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it's really scary.
So there were a couple of examples of that several years ago. The Montana hotshot firefighters all perished. They had all their gear on. They were out fighting a forest fire. They had the blankets, and there were 12 of them. And they all perished. I hate to say that's the worst case scenario, but that's the worst case scenario. So it sounds good, but there has to be some other plans for that. There has to be some other alternative for people that are standing in line, like the people in Lahaina, in their cars, that know they're not going to get out.
You know, this would be another great thing if we have a community event to talk about your plan. Is I know that our plan is to just not be in that position and to not wait for the Nixle alert to evacuate. As soon as May 1st hits, we have our bags packed. Like, we have a suitcase so that if we're running out the door, we're not waiting for someone. There's no sirens, right? There's no no consistent reliability on even a cell phone message, because that's what didn't happen in Lahaina. I mean, all you can do is just not.
We've already had several fires in the middle of the night, and there weren't even fire, sirens. So if that got out of control, we were already stuck, because they were in among houses. I smelt it at 2:30, thinking, God, I have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. I smelled smoke, so I got the car and drove around. But there was no fire, there was nothing, not even, and they got them under control. The fires that we've had, and they didn't spread. But, so when you say you're ready, you're not ready at 2:30 in the night. You're not ready. Nobody's ready. And who was gonna go open those two gates, top and bottom? It seems, I mean, I just don't want to sit here and say, ooh, it's doom and gloom, but it seems
it's
very
doom and gloom.
This is where I've been living for 8 months.
I think it was David who said, if the 2021, tell me if I'm misquoting you wrong, if the 2021 happened in the same exact conditions, there's no guarantee the village would have been burned. Like, it was just sort of luck that people evacuated, that the fire was stopped 3 miles from us. We don't know the worst outcome.
But that was in the middle of the day too. I mean,
Well,
it was
that-
12 o'clock in the
right.
daytime. That's so much different than 2:30 you can do. Because there's so many people that are older and can't even get out of their houses in enough time.
If you look at the other situations of areas like ours, you do the best you can. We're stuck. Just like Paradise, California, that's where I'm from, that area. Just like Santa Rosa, it happened out there. It happened in, South Tahoe area. It happened in Lahaina. And the answer is you just do the best you can. And it's not a good answer. There is no other answer, except for another road, and that's why we're here. But one of the things that I'm thinking about is, okay, so, a big event would be nice, but tomorrow, how do we let people know?
Yeah.
Because, I've changed my own personal travel plans, because August is known to be fire month, whether it's Lahaina or here. And if you look at the history, you'll see August is the month. Now, I'm not saying it wouldn't happen tomorrow or in December, but it's here, and we've had a lot of rain, and there's a lot of fuel, which is good and bad, but what are we gonna do tomorrow? And so what can we, I made some suggestions, and I'm still interested in doing them, but
We have the meetings, right? We go to the farmer's market, we talk to as many people as we possibly can, and you're absolutely right. We need to tell more people. We need a sign at the KTA. We need magnets in every Airbnb, every refrigerator. We need a flyer. We've got our website. We're trying to start again. Get the word out. is what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to do is what it.
I think 20 years ago was the time for the second road.
Yeah.
Right? And
what did you say?
20 years ago was the time we really needed the second road. And every day since then is just increasing urgency with increasing fire risk and increasing community growth.
And the other thing is that I haven't lived here long enough to be jaded, but there's a lot of people that live, my elderly neighbors that are not with us anymore, but in 2021, I got the message and I started going to my neighbors and I was trying to pack up my ill husband and all the things we needed to do. And I went to my neighbors and I said, you need to get out now. And they're like, we've been through this 100 times. I said, just go, look at the sky. Come on, just go. No. So how do we combat that?
You can't.
That's ignorance. People are
That's not your
ignorant.
job.
Yeah. It's hard.
Not your job.
It's hard.
I've been in a burning building, running through, knocking on doors and having people evacuate. And why would we turn on? open the door and say, let it burn, close the door.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah, exactly.
Like burn yourself to save someone who doesn't want to be saved?
I mean, it is our job to run around the neighborhood and say, fire, 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 get out. But then you pass on the information to people. At that point, you gotta save yourself.
Yeah.
You can't take responsibility.
Yes,
So, Matt, to go back to your idea,
please.
as well as all the things that people talked about, what can we do, today, tomorrow, etc. Education seems to be a big thing, and I agree with Michael that one of the very first things that we should probably do regarding the event is just write down all of the ideas, and then basically make it, as a community, what is the educational value and what will you get as a community member by attending and supporting this event? That would also work for fundraising.
Yes.
When you go to people. That's the reason for doing the event. The race and all the other things are the icing on, icing on the cake. But what does the community get by this particular thing? And maybe to start interest in it, or to get people jazzed to where they're coming to you or whomever and saying, I want to be a part of that. Is there some type of monthly, I'm biting big here, I should have said quarterly to begin with, but let's go monthly. Is there some kind of monthly educational thing that this group could start that people could read? So I'm at home and I get this monthly message, and the monthly message says, when was the last time you looked in your yard to see if you had this? Or when was the last time you made sure that you're following this rule? Is your bag packed? And if your bag isn't packed, what are the things that you might want to consider having in your bag? Where can you get additional information on this type of thing so that people get used to that by offering the educational value? Maybe the people, and they're still going to exist, but maybe the people who are saying, we've been down this road 1,000 times, I'm not leaving, maybe they glean something from this education. And then, if we do it for a few months, it's easier to go to sponsors and say, we've been doing this for a few months, people seem to like it, we're getting good feedback, why don't you sponsor us? Put some money toward this little educational thing that we're doing. It'll eventually lead to this bigger event that we're doing.
I guess like an email, like how would that?
It's a great idea.
Yeah, or or a newsletter, or an email tidbit, or if we could get it approved to be part of the breeze, then it would be, hey, on the front page, hey, there's this new thing, part of the breeze, it's tied into this group. It's an educational thing that you'll be reading every month about something that the group is doing, and an educational thing that has to do with fire watch and fire in the village and things like that. I'm just trying to think of ways that we could start getting more awareness, but also have something that's tangible that you could go to people and say, perhaps maybe this is a way to.
So I think it's a wonderful idea, but the part of how do you actually reach people? And I was thinking about this. Wildfire management put out a big thing today with lots of information, and I guess the government declared this month fire month or whatever. This is, but I was looking at the HWMO site, and there's a ton of things like that. These things you can print off that are like 42 tips, okay, or 42 things to do type of thing. And I was thinking, part of the problem that we're all sort of talking about is how do you get people to pay attention and engage with that information? Because a lot of the stuff is already
So
there.
the time and the work doesn't go to waste. So if we start it, then maybe we can go and get a sponsorship or whatever. What if, and again, I'm thinking very big here, just off the cuff. What if someone like KTA says, I want to sponsor this, so KTA sponsors it, KTA banner is at the bottom, and these fire tips or whatever, these 10 tips, these 42 tips, whatever it has to be, people start seeing these around the neighborhood too. We'll never get everybody to read email. We'll never get everybody to read the breeze. But maybe we get something started where posters are up and people start seeing this information posted everywhere. It has a place that you can go, an email address or website or whatever. you know, to get more information. I'm just trying to think of how to build it up little by little so that people who don't read will somehow get it in front of their face. And the avenues that we do have, like Breeze or other things, are already there because we're going to have to start small and build.
Yeah, one thing that absolutely, what I was thinking is like the more places we put it out there, the more opportunities people have to see it, because not everyone's going to see it at that spot.
Exactly.
One thing that I want everyone to think about for 1 second is if you look around the room, what's the average demographic? Does that match the actual average demographic in the village? Users know it does not. There are lots and lots and lots of kids.
I think demographics is just understanding how you reach any particular demographic.
That's exactly what I'm trying to say, is that what we're doing here is we're talking about lots of ways to reach the people that are engaged or would see things already, but we're not talking about getting TikToks out there. We're not talking about getting Instagrams out there. And that is a thing we did found an Instagram page, and I do have a short form video coming about, but I think there's also another spot where it could just be like someone reading that as the reel, and that's a short little video that goes out to some of the kids. And that's the thing that I'm trying to do also, is get connected into the schools to try and talk to them. This is the real nightmare scenario. What if the evacuation happens in the middle of the school day? Like,
I think all those pieces tie together perfectly. I think your point is an excellent one. Because then you just take all of that to schools. Maybe it's a flyer that the kids send home, you know, from school to mom and dad that says, Mom and Dad, this is what we learned today in school. This is the place you can go to look for this information, and it all starts tying together so people become more accustomed.
But it has to happen concurrently.
Exactly.
Go to David and say, I asked this question previously and was told there was an evacuation plan done a long time ago. Well, anything done a long time ago doesn't mean anything.
We do not have an evacuation.
And it has to address different times of day and different days. It has to address when school's in session. It has to address in the middle of the night when we're all asleep and not coherent. And I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to read 42 tips. I'm going to read the top 3 that are going to jump out at me, that's going to save my life the most. And so I've got my things ready to go. I don't know where I'm going to go or how I'm going to get there. And I don't know that some of my neighbors do too. So I'm going to suggest that all of that is really good and well. If there's not a group working on an evacuation plan at the same time, because August is coming, and I'll join you.
Oh, I mean, I think it's been growing. I think that's an excellent point.
yes,
One thing, I really like all the comments that people have been bringing up. I think they're very valid, and they certainly are concerns we need to think about. Whenever I look at the whole fire thing and the education that needs to go with it, I look at it as a 2-pronged approach. One is you have the community and how you're going to educate the community. The second piece of it is truly for the community, and this would not necessarily just be WVA, although maybe they could be the drivers of it, but to actually put together a fire plan for the community. So for example, for those of you who know me, I've been with the Stables for years, and we kind of have actually a little bit of a fire plan. It's not perfect by any means, but for example, we know what we're going to do with the horses. If the owners cannot get here and get the horses, we do have extra trailers to try to be able to get them out. If that doesn't work and fire is coming, we bring the horses to the golf course and we put them in the middle of the golf course, and isn't that going to be fun? Maybe that'll be me doing that, I don't know. But anyway, you know, the other thing is, how can we as a community even try to combat or assist in some of the firefighting? In this particular case at the Stables, we do have the regulation size firefighting hose, and it has been used in the last 2 fires on the Malka side, and it put it out. It kept it from getting here because of that fire hose up there. But it's just kind of, well, we know we have a, you know, that we have a hose, and you know, someone can come, for some reason it's here in the office, but you know, come down to the office, pick it up, take it back up to the Stables, hook it up. I don't exactly know which main you have to hook it on and whatever. and everything, you'd have to have training to be able to actually do it. And to me, there are other things in the community. I mean, are there any type of water resources with the golf course that could be used in the case of a fire that's coming? You know, I don't know that there have been any kind of discussions about that. And then, I'll cut this short, but then in terms of educating the community, I know that before I came here, which was back in 2016, there were actually like classes and things that were held up at the stables, and fire was one of the things that they did, because that way it was a big enough space to get everybody, WVA people, non-WVA people, who cares, community people, get people together up there. They had the fire departments come in and do lectures and talks. They did a whole thing to community about what do you pack, where are you going to go, these are the things you need to think about. You know, people don't always get their information from reading. They don't. It's sad. I do, but most people don't anymore. And sometimes you need to create that kind of a social atmosphere to get people to actually show up and come. Now, will you hit everybody? No, but you try a lot of different avenues. And that's really the best that you can do. And you hope you get everybody. So I would really kind of like, as a community, for us to look at these two paths that really are open to us to address the fire issues.
Do you want to talk about an evacuation plan? A community evacuation plan?
Okay, so I think it's almost criminal that we don't have an evacuation plan.
It is on the civil defense to-do list. And Tom Mitch talked about, there's some sketch of breaking up the village into different zones and how they would want to evacuate specific zones at a time so there aren't traffic jams.
Yeah.
But both the county and the state are pushing for evacuation plans for all kinds of disasters.
In 2021, that fire burned for over a day before we were evacuated, and we left very quickly, and there were no police anywhere. Nobody was directing anyone, and then we went to the city Evans town hall, and she said very clearly the police do not want citizens directing any traffic of any kind. So congratulations, they have the blueprint of the
If it's city that's responsible for that, then I think we should be getting together and figuring out how to make them more responsible, right? Because again, I'm sorry, I don't understand how there cannot be one, and it upsets me that there was a certain level of patting themselves on the back when they evacuated the village last time. And as someone said, it worked that day, at that time, under those conditions, and it doesn't tell you anything about whether you were able to do it successfully again in another situation. Right? Now, one of the things that I know should be available to us is, I've looked at some stuff in California and Colorado and other states have done it as well. They've required communities, and they put enabling legislation in place to require emergency evacuation traffic studies, and say, if you have two or fewer roads out of your community, you've got to have a plan, and you've got to be able to demonstrate that you can successfully evacuate your community, or you need to do something about it. And you know, the states are coming up with some money to fund those types of efforts. But see, to me, it's like, until we get to a kind of a fact-based, like, don't imagine it'll be the same next time. How many cars can we evacuate? If all the roads are open, if none of the roads are open. So
and at what time of day?
What do we do?
What time of day?
School day, weekend, nighttime, daytime, all those scenarios need to be run, okay?
So the California plans were put into place after the disasters.
Yes.
And I'm sorry to say that, that is exactly what happens. We shouldn't have to wait that long.
Right.
And while someone else is, you know, because those of us at the very end are probably not getting out. So while someone else may ultimately be responsible for, sorry, neighbor.
I know, I just said not to.
You're from the there needs to be something to go to these people with. So there at least has to be a draft that says, we live here, we've looked at this, we understand the times of day, we understand school in session, we understand one-lane road or two-lane roads out, we understand traffic coming this way while we're trying to go out that way. That should be drafted prior to vote. They may ultimately be responsible. I worked for county and state government for too long. If you wait for them to do it, we're all gonna die up here.
So, yeah, suppose my ignorance. So is civil defense county? Is it state? I mean, where is?
It's county.
It's county. So as much as, with your conversations and, getting to the mayor, getting representatives on. So civil defense is obviously another department.
I reached out to them, but I have not gotten a response back.
I mean, that's not the but I mean, that's another area that has to be, especially to raise this issue.
And listen, I agree with that. Some sort of foundational. The good thing is I've actually seen what cities have done in California. So there's actually a pretty darn good blueprint. Right? So it's not like we have to suddenly become, super experts on the subject. It looks like this, okay? And this is the methodology that others are using, and we should be applying it to our community. Yeah.
There was that community talk story that's in the Evans had a couple months ago, where the deputy fire chief came in. And it was, unfortunately, there was only about 24 people at that event, but you could hear a pin drop when the deputy fire chief talked about how vulnerable we are, how limited resources are. He got into some of the science with what happened with the fire in Lahaina, and how that could happen here. It's all about heating gas, not necessarily flicking embers around. But his advice was, don't wait for an evacuation plan. He's like, if there's a red flag warning day, that's the day you head down to Costco or hang out at the beach for that day until that threat passes.
But it's so often,
But
I'm with you 100%. The flip side is, it happens so often here, and it's so windy, so often.
But the red flag warning days are pretty rare. I think we only had about 3 last year. And last year was an exceptional year for them. But conditions have to be just right with humidity and wind.
Yes.
But I think Michael, he gave you the cheap plan for dealing with it, okay? But it's because he didn't have anything better.
But
because there's
By his own admission, we were at that
But-
same meeting, but by his own admission, he really didn't plan having it done.
People with families with kids in school, going down to Costco and getting out of town,
Not reality.
We did present Cindy Evans with draft legislation for the county to share amongst the other county council members that basically said, based exactly off of this legislation in California, if a community only has 2 or fewer exits before a subdivision of 5 or more houses gets approved for construction, you have to pay. Well, you can't just force one individual homeowner to trigger.
I'm just laughing because we have all these.
It would trigger immediately, instantaneously for any developer, not for individual homeowners is the distinction. Anyways, that they would be required to fund emergency evacuation plan, that we would have to have one. Didn't pass, and it would be, we can continue advocating for it and continue pushing for it.
Well, she didn't submit it.
She didn't even submit anything. It didn't even, not even pass, it didn't go anywhere. And the issue that I believe exists is the developers on the island have a very substantial amount of influence and power, and that would be a thing that would cost money.
It would cost the county.
Yeah, to your point, we should really, maybe we need to develop a little subcommittee of people interested in the subject, okay? Is help ourselves, right? So not only could we be starting to do some things in terms of thinking about, how do I get that dear neighbor of mine not to tell me no and not for, right? How do we do some of these things and plan for ourselves in terms of understanding? I think that would be wonderful.
You know, Matt, from the email I had sent to you earlier, you know, for other people who may not be aware, our Attorney General is actually working with both the Western Fire Chiefs Association and the Fire Safety Research Institute to determine exactly what happened with the Lahaina fire and how to prevent it from ever happening again. The first of 3 reports has come out on that. In looking into this further, the Fire Safety Research Institute, the state of Hawaii is a member of that organization, and their sole purpose is to simply help communities up front with coming up with, you know, evacuation plans and things for communities, how to make everybody safe. If this is a group that our state is part of, and this is their level of expertise, why can't we use them? You know, to me, it's like, why wait for the government people to do anything? I would prefer to, let's just go and do it, you know? I had mentioned that group also to Shelley Ina, and she said that after she recovered from burnout, well, that's a bad word, but sorry about that. But anyway, she was gonna maybe reach out to them and see what kind of resources we might be able to get from
You know,
them.
if we have to do it, and I've heard that before, and I think there's a huge amount of really good information. I'd love to figure out how to share with our communities, because it could have been us. It could be us.
Yes.
But maybe raising money towards the goal of having an emergency evacuation plan and having the right level of attention.
We can wait for it. Just get enough money. You guys are good.
Okay, so I thought that we had already gotten those sirens approved.
Yeah, so the sirens are sitting in a factory in China right now.
Pardon?
The sirens are sitting on the factory floor in China right now and have not gotten delivered to us. Yeah.
I think September is the new date that I've heard.
Or the one
September, they're hoping to get one from.
one in Kamakonu in Ko'inui Park, and then the future one would be in Kamakonu Park.
Yeah, I don't know the logistics of it, only that it was approved and then delayed.
Why is it delayed?
I don't know the logistics.
But everyone keeps telling me that it's sitting on the factory floor in China. And it's not. I asked the same question last Thursday.
I mean, is that a question for Cindy Evans?
And who were you asking?
Mike Deal, the fire chief at Waikoloa.
So is that the only place we could get them?
We have to.
I don't know.
It's a state.
Yeah, I think that they can be certified. It's not like there's like a bunch of manufacturers of these things. I think that it's a pretty specialized thing because it taps into certain cell networks, and sirens are particularly loud. They have to be reliable over long periods of time without usage. I'm not a siren engineer. I don't know the specifics there, but I do know that they're.
Okay, so that is approved and that is underway.
Yes.
But that's another good Talmadge question, and he is relatively approachable and relatively visible. I would invite him to your next meeting.
I'll try to do that if I get a response from him again. I'm sure he's busy, and if you can help poke on that, that'd be awesome.
I'll call him and invite him tonight.
You call him and invite him tonight, tell him to email
He
me.
may send his new PIO, but either one is okay for us.
Okay, yeah, anyway, we want people here. Every time I talk to someone, I invite them to this meeting, so we want everyone to show up.
So how many were approved, just 2?
I believe one was approved and funded, and the other, I think, needs more funding. It's
So let's put some money to that.
It's some overlay between the state system and state funding and county funding.
I think Cindy spoke about that at the meeting we attended as well, but we were just getting one,
But one is on the way.
A big topic, unless you have something specific, that we have not broached yet, and that we've been having a side conversation about is insurance. I don't know if Bob, you want to broach this whole thing right now or not, but this is
Well, I think we can start the conversation. But you're probably all aware of the fact that the insurance companies have walked away from counties in California, in Iowa, because in California it's fire risk. In Iowa, it's wind damage and hail. In Florida, it's hurricanes. In Louisiana, it's hurricanes. In Texas now, it's flooding. So insurance companies are deciding that the risk is too high, that they're not being able to carry the costs, that they're risking bankruptcy, actually. That's what it comes down to. And that areas with high risk are losing coverage. So we're in that category. And there are owners in Lahaina now that are having a very hard time getting coverage. Some of the big structures, the big condo developments are having the biggest challenge. Their insurance rates are going up from like $500,000 a year for the structure to 6 or 7 in 1 year. And they don't have reserves to cover that. And what happens is that when you lose coverage, you can't sell your property because the banks will not lend. They not only will not lend when you try to sell your house, but they will also call your mortgage. Because it's a condition of your mortgage that you have insurance. So if you lose your coverage, if the insurance company doesn't renew you, the bank can foreclose on your mortgage. They won't do that immediately. They'll send you a notice, they'll say, well, you're out of compliance with your mortgage, and you've got your coverage, and then everybody scrambles. And sometimes you can find coverage, but then it's, instead of being $2,000 or $3,000 a year, it turns out to be $10,000 or $20,000. And for people on fixed income, that becomes a hell of a challenge. So there is now being set up by the legislature. I just heard an interview on Hawaii Public Radio this week, Monday. There was an interview with the Speaker of the House and the State Insurance Commissioner. They're putting together a commission to investigate this problem. And what California has done is to set up an insurance pool so that if you end up being in one of those areas where the insurance companies simply walk away and there's no coverage, at least this insurance pool will provide a backstop. And something like that is going to be explored by this commission in Hawaii. But that doesn't necessarily protect you from large increases in your premiums, because those pools tend to have relatively limited buy-in, relatively small number of people paying premiums, and so the premiums end up being very high. So it doesn't necessarily protect you if you're really stuck from your own limited income standpoint. And it also seriously diminishes the marketability of your house if you want to get out. And so property values take nosedive. So there's a lot of consequences of being in this high-risk zone. So one of the things that it does for me is emphasize the importance of actually protecting the community from the fire. If we get a fire that actually comes into the village and destroys houses, we are going to be cut off. We're going to go into that category where the insurers are going to walk away. If we succeed in keeping the fire out of the village, we're much less likely to end up in just no coverage zone, being redlined. So this is the kind of thing that I think we want to have a conversation with the community about, to encourage people to support aggressive efforts to make these fire breaks really work. That means keeping the vegetation out of the breaks so that they work. And the other piece of it is engaging with the commission that's being set up at the legislature so that we can track what they're talking about and making sure that it serves our needs. Because those kinds of things are often designed to protect the insurance companies and not necessarily the homeowners. And we have a whole different interest in this than protecting the insurance company. I mean, it goes hand in hand. If the insurance companies go bankrupt, they're not going to be able to offer everything coverage. So there's a chicken and egg question there. It's not like we want to dump on the insurance companies, but we don't want something that's only going to protect them. So it's a very messy issue. It's growing very rapidly across the whole country, and it has a lot to do with the fact that the insurance companies are now facing payouts that they did not predict even 5 years ago, because they were not anticipating the amount of damage that climate change was going to cause. That's what it comes down to.
That was fun.
Yeah, the AOAOs in Waikoloa, some of them have seen a 4 to 5 times increase in their community's general plan. So many people in town and many WBA members are now facing special assessments of hundreds of dollars a month, which is why they're very resistant and reluctant to invest in greater dues for things like fire mitigation and other expenses, because they're being hammered. And a lot of these people in these condos are on fixed incomes, and they did not budget for $4,000 of extra insurance that they didn't plan on for this year. But I heard Oahu, some of them are facing tenfold increases year over year. That's just, I don't plan for that.
But it's going to become far worse if we actually have a fire penetrate into the village.
But it's going to be far worse even if there's no disaster here, because these are all national carriers. It looks like we're going to have an epic hurricane season. So you have the big carriers carrying huge losses on the East Coast this year. That's going to impact insurability here.
Yeah, everywhere. Yeah, it's the whole industry is under stress, for sure.
But even though we're as disaster prone as we are, I'm surprised at how few guardrails there are protecting us from legislatively. Like at least California and Hawaii, California and Florida have rules on if an insurance company wants to exit the state, they need to give several years advance notice, or they can only cut X percentage of their policyholders a year. And here, it's the Wild West, and could come and go as they please. So we really need to push on our state reps to rein that in. And I don't think we can wait for a commission to give us guidance that they may act on in 2 or 3 years.
Well, this session is over. So the best we can do is give something up for the next session. But I'm not sure. I mean, I've heard that Tim Richards is actually working on a concept. But what I've heard was that the concept he's working on is related more to the kind of risk that Elko is facing because of their role in treating the fires. And so his plan is oriented more towards those with interests with really high cost risk and not for homeowners. So we need to learn more about that. He's coming to the next seniors meeting, and it's something that we should go and ask questions about. I'd like to understand more about what he's looking at. And I think we need to impress upon him that whatever he's thinking about, he's got to think bigger, so that he's thinking about protecting us as well as some of the companies with bigger risks.
Locally, the WBA board did look into seeing what it would take to make a master policy for the community. So rather than you getting your individual homeowners, there would be a master discounted policy. But it didn't seem like it would pan out discount-wise or risk load-wise, because there's a growing number of non-WBA people with within the village area.
Yeah, it seems to me that it's a difficult education process to get people to sort of wrap their heads around that.
It's
Even just saying that they've seen their rates go up, and that's causing them to not want to have to pay more for other things because their insurance rates went up.
Well, it's because they can't afford it.
Well, fair enough, okay, but the problem is that when the place burns down, the problem, that problem is like a rounding error in their lives. So, I mean, it's a interesting thing to have to try and educate people to understand that. I mean,
Looping it back around a little bit to our action items and WSOP work specifically. I have been, not accused, but several times people have brought up, aren't you worried you're going to get all our fire insurance taken away? By posting all these videos and talking about the issues, right? And what I always tell them, same thing that Michael just said, these are national carriers who have centuries of experience protecting their money and making money. They know way more about the risks and hazards than anybody here does. They're not sitting here looking for us. But I do think we serve a purpose in protecting this insurance and going out and advocating for the fuel breaks to be expanded, for the interior lots to be cleared out, and then showing to the insurance companies, hey, look, no, we are taking care of our own. We are protecting our space. We aren't being, contributing to the hazard in any way, and that, they're going to be there.
Well, it's not a question of just not contributing to the hazard, is that we are actually reducing their risk.
Exactly.
That's what sells that.
Exactly. So we as we go about communicating this and everything, I think that that's an important point to reiterate, is we are actually proactive in the insurance thing, not taking it away and screwing over the village. That's not where we're
Matt
going.
only dreams of being so powerful. Checking this post.
No, but I think it's an answer to the concern that people have that by highlighting the fire risk, that we're going to increase the insurance risk. It's the opposite.
We're at 7:05 also.
Yeah,
There's been a lot of content. We want to make sure we have some actionable items, so I wanted to send it back to us.
Yeah, I want to be really mindful of everyone's time. The last part that we haven't talked about, the discussing the WSOP work streams. This is on last meeting's agenda. I don't think we need to have a big discussion about it with the whole group. I think we could wrap up and then look for the names on the table if you guys would like to volunteer your time to help us. We're talking to the legislators all the time. I have a couple action items to talk to Fire Safety Research Institute that Laura brought up. We need help communicating with the community about upcoming meetings and what we're doing. So this sort of breaks down what we're actively working on week to week. When I say we, I mean myself, Serena, David Foster, Matt, and Bob are sort of like the core group working on this weekly. And then at the end, we have the upcoming events. I really want to highlight the primary candidate election speed dating forum event happening in Waimea in mid-July, which is an opportunity to talk face-to-face with candidates running and talk to them about Waikoloa issues. It doesn't only have to be fire, but just to talk story with people that are running for office. And then, yeah, we gave you a nice party packet. Please talk to us if you have questions after this and you want to have any one-on-one conversations with anyone about anything. We really appreciate you coming.
Anyone else have anything to share with the group?
Not so much sharing, but I came away with what Bob said. I don't care about an exit road now. I want to keep the fire out of the village. Because I'm at the very end, and Paniolo, and it's just like, that seems to be the most important dialogue. And I'm sure everybody in here has heard, a person has to hear something 10 times before it even registers. So, am I going out? I'd like to know what I can say. What words can I tell my neighbors or anybody I meet when I'm out? Something simple that I can repeat over and over and over again. I would like to know that phrase.
Well, you said you don't care about a second road, but what we've been saying is second road for Waikoloa Village, we've been saying it over and over.
We have
Second
been
road
saying
for
that,
Waikoloa
yeah,
Village.
right, and so, but the fire break is even more important, that's all I'm saying is.
Well, I rank them equally.
Equally, yeah.
I mean, the fire break is not a sure thing. It's important. It's very important.
Okay.
But if the fire breaks through the fire breaks, or if it starts closer to the village than the fire breaks, that's the other thing.
That's true.
Then the fire breaks don't even play a role.
That's true.
And once the fire gets into the village, say it blocks off Panagolo at some point. It burns that far.
Yeah.
Right? There's no way out. And we've got to have this emergency road.
That's second.
I mean, we have Lulu, but that is one lane. And imagine, if you've driven it, can you imagine driving it at night? There are no lights. There are two 90-degree turns. When you get to those turns, you're not going to even see them in the dark, even with your headlights on. People are going to run off the road and it's going to get blocked.
Solar lights, no work at night, and the sun's out there all the time, so they're getting little solar lights and put them on those turns somehow or some way.
I like it.
People aware.
Way to go.
I think they put some reflectors out there. I think there are reflectors.
There are reflectors, yes.
But not so really, yeah.
But they don't show up.
Yes.
Are you an engineer?
I mean, I have a degree in engineering, I have a degree in art history, and I don't have a good focus.
And I don't even know, I mean, this is like all my ideas pie in the sky, but could PTA put a borat, bomber, you know what borate is? Borate is the stuff that they drop from the planes along the sides when they're trying to contain it in California. No place in Hawaii do we have borate bombers or borate fire retardant. I'm just wondering. No, in Hawaii. What place is it? They dropping it with? What air?
They just don't drop in the water, they're targeted in the water.
Well, this is what I'm talking about. Is the red stuff that they put across the whole thing. And I mean, like I said, it can be a pie in the sky, but somebody, when you're up at PTA, can you?
We can talk about it. I can mention it to them, but I mean, I guarantee the first thing they're going to say is it's going to cost $1 million, right? And that's a great thing to start advocating, and we want that for sure. I don't know why we don't have any of the scoop planes. I imagine it's hard to fill off of the ocean if I had to guess. And
This is water. No, this is water. It's boring. It's boring.
I don't know. I don't have an answer for why it doesn't exist, but sure, we
I
totally.
believe there was some state legislation to buy a plane or two.
Oh, really?
It didn't go anywhere.
See, because even if it was just on one island.
Yeah.
Then all the other islands could.
That's a good point, because Lieutenant Colonel Alvarado did say that it's super fast. Mayor Roth calls him, Chief Todd calls him, they have each other's cell phones, and he makes one call to the Pentagon just saying, hey, I'm doing this thing, and then it's instantaneous, the Black Hawks are taking off and going down. If the wind isn't too bad, and if they're on the big island. If they're on the Oahu, 3 hours and then won't do it. And that's also if the wind isn't too bad. If the wind's too bad, they're just grounded full stop. And that's the other problem. Fuel breaks are awesome.
These are
if it's blowing 60 miles an hour, right, it doesn't matter. It's 60 mile an hour wind. Doesn't matter. Nothing will stop. Football field would be wide open for that. So it's hard.
Anybody want to buy a house?
While still has insurance.
Exactly, and then there's some good price in it.
The one line that we've kind of been saying is that we are in exactly the same position as Lahaina, but we don't have the ocean. If anything, we're worse.
Real happy about it.
I know. I love the thing with Kendra with the suggestion of the education piece, and I think that that's a real thing that we can get out in the next month, both on social media and through other places. I don't know about it being memories and places like that, but we can start putting them on Nextdoor and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So,
And I would like some help It's just the one woman show over here communicating. I would love support if anyone, yeah. Awesome.
And does this include an evacuation plan?
So we'll add that as a column on there, and that's totally a thing that we could literally sit down in someone's garage and have a map of the village and go get stopwatches and start timing how long it takes to get from place to place. We can bootstrap it. I don't know. I want to do that, but I think that that's a thing that the subcommittee or some people can sit down and do if we've got a little bit of time. I think that that'd be very valuable.
Let's engage with the Fire Research Institute
Yes.
first that Laura recommended and see if they have pointers for where we can start. If they recommend we bootstrap, or if they have a template that we can work off of, let's not reinvent the wheel if they have something.
Well, if we've got the fire department and civil defense, who both have a mission that includes helping us evacuate. So if we're gonna put together a plan, we need them at the table.
100%. Yeah.
I just had another idea about the sirens, since they seem to be held in China. How about if we start a neighborhood thing where somebody in each neighborhood volunteers and we do a horn of some kind, that at least we would be able to let people know that it's time to evacuate. Turn on the TV, do something.
I mean, the actual plan from the Hawaii Police Department that we've heard is that they will go around with megaphones.
Yeah,
and
were they
tell
at
people to evacuate.
Waikoloa Road the last time we had to
Nobody was
evacuate?
there. I mean, nobody was there. Oh, they came.
Eventually they will.
Eventually, but that's gonna be too late for people who have to evacuate.
Yeah, a signal with car warnings makes a lot of
It's
sense.
a good idea.
Because it's.
Because you don't know where it's gonna start.
And even if they don't know what it's all about,
Right.
they'll come out and they'll say, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Disturbing the peace.
It's a good idea because even the sirens, my understanding is the siren is an indication to turn on your radio or TV. So the horns could function in the exact, it's just an indication something's going on.
But it does have to be in just a certain thing, because if everybody thinks, oh, somebody's car horn's going off, again, they don't respond.
No, but a bunch of people are doing it all the time.
And then we let everybody know, somehow, some way. I have trouble finding email.
Yeah, there's a neighbor, I think his name is Rick Gleason, who's trying to start up like a community watch too.
Okay.
And I mean, he's all about sharing information in this space, maybe we could engage with
A
him.
sheet of paper, like to people who can't drive, that says what their name is and, you know, your little community, like your port and whatever.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
And I have one more good idea. If you guys know somebody who wants a Christmas present and you don't know what to get them, if those blankets work, or a fire extinguisher, because they're the people that have everything and they don't need anything, but they don't have those two things, I would start putting those on your Christmas list.
Beyond July 3rd, the next meeting is going to be August 7th. Definitely.
The Wednesday.
And no plans of summer breaks or summer travel.
I mean,
I'm
the
giving-
only
Promise Fire will
thing
take a
that
break.
would keep August meeting is a fire.
I'm asking,
It's the anniversary.
huh?
The anniversary.
Well, August 8th is it.
Well,
Yeah. But I'm giving Tom Mitch 2 dates to pick from.
Oh, great, yeah. I can do it during the day. But you guys, thank you everyone. Come here. Yes. Sorry. That, yes, I also would love to go sit with him, but that is not possible, but that's separate. Thank you. Thank you. All in favor? We got to stop over there.